Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Collin Whitchurch, joined as always by Sean Zerillo, here to break down Game 5 of the 2025 World Series. Blue Jays, Dodgers, all tied up at 2 games apiece. Sean, I think last night's game was the first one of this series that we just didn't get right. It's the first one that didn't go the way that we expected in some way. I do think that you had a nice call about potential late runs. I don't know if the total closed at 7.5 or 8. If we got
it opened 8.5. So the people who bet the early under 8.5 won, but yeah, it ended up closing at 8. So
yeah,
mostly push, but the early 8.5 grabbers definitely got the right side of the line.
Yeah, I think pitching went as expected, with the exception of obviously Ohtani getting dinged up there a little bit. We saw, I talked about potential relievers coming in behind these starters with everyone having been used the night before. We saw Fluharty and Bassett as expected. Varland, just because he pitches every single day. And on the Dodgers side, they went with their 2 lefties in Dreyer and Banda. Banda was kind of the real big culprit of the game getting away from LA, and then Blake Trinan, who was a tire fire, as he always is, but Dave Roberts loves to use him. The runs weren't ultimately charged to him. I don't remember if he gave up inherited runs but he got into some trouble immediately after coming in the game.
Yeah, Banda gave up Ohtani's runs, and then Trinan gave up Banda's runs. So
yeah,
kept passing it down the line there.
And my big takeaway from that kind of blow up inning, because that's what happened. That's we knew coming into the series that the Dodgers' big weakness is their bullpen. We've seen games where a starter will leave with some runners on base, maybe down a run or two, and then it just explodes from there. That's exactly what happened last night. And last night was the first time, even including Game 3, that we really saw the effects of no Alex Vesia on this roster, because they had the lefties ready to go in key spots, but if they had Vesia in those spots instead of Banda, Dreyer obviously was fine later in the game when it didn't matter as much, but that would have been Alex Vesia's spot coming in relief of Ohtani there. Maybe you get out of that inning down 3-2 or 4-2. It's a different story. Obviously, LA's bats didn't wake up from the night before, regardless, so maybe it wouldn't have mattered, but that was kind of my big takeaway from the LA bullpen standpoint. We've talked a lot about bullpen usage in this series. It's been something we've been watching closely, particularly with these teams seeing these pitchers multiple times, how they adjust. Quick update there now, just in terms of appearances. Banda's now the only Dodgers pitcher who has appeared 3 times. Can't imagine we'll see him tonight. In terms of 2+ appearances now, with the exception of Will Klein, who kind of an anomaly, and I don't know if they're going to use him in big spots despite his Game 3 heroics. Sheehan has thrown twice. Wroblewski's thrown twice. Dreyer and Trinan have all thrown twice. But on the Toronto side now, we have seen 4 different relievers now 3 times in this series. Chris Bassett, who I can't imagine is going to get used again, except for in emergencies. And then Braden Fisher, Mason Fluharty, and Louis Varland, as we said. And then Dominguez, Hoffman, and Lauer have pitched twice. Any big takeaways, Sean, from last night's game and kind of the series reset here, now all tied up at 2?
Yeah, how Shohei Ohtani was pitched. I thought I was locked in on that all day, to be honest with you. I stared at the exchanges who offered the two-way markets on Ohtani home run. There was $30,000 of liquidity available on Ohtani not to homer at -210, -250. Kind of stayed there all day. It ended up getting all the way up to -400 because so there's a difference when it comes to playoff time in terms of how the game is played, how the game is managed, how guys are pitched, etc., compared to a normal baseball game. And I do think there are people out there who model these games who don't really know how baseball works. They're just modeling sports and don't understand that last night was expected to be a different scenario. Now, in terms of how it actually played out, and I do think that's why, you were able to bet the no if you wanted to, if you actually pay attention, because I think there's just like people bot betting essentially based off of projections, and like Ohtani should never be plus 300 to homer, right? Based upon their model. So why is he plus 300? I don't know. The model's just going to automatically grab it, or whatever automated system they have in place may automatically allocate. But in terms of how he was actually pitched last night, he saw one pitch in the heart of the zone. It was a curveball when they were already down 6-2, or believe, or 6-1 in the 8th inning. So the start of the game, fell behind 3-0, got a strike, then got a low strike that was nowhere near the zone, and then a 3-2 pitch hit the corner, was called ball 4, probably as a makeup call for the 3-1 pitch. But I saw a lot of people victory lapping Ohtani first plate appearance walk tickets, and I was like, you probably should have gotten punched out on the 3-2 pitch. Now, the 3-1 pitch shouldn't have been a strike, and I think the 3-2 was very much a makeup call, but easy on the victory lap, considering that 3-2 pitch was very much in the zone. That could have gone against you, and you could have lost, and everybody could have lost those tickets out there. Now, if you think the books are in cahoots with umpires, if you think books are in cahoots with the league, I'm telling you, that 3-1 pitch had my ears perked up going, oh boy, Ohtani's about to get punched out here on something that is not even close to borderline, and in fact got the walk on the borderline pitch. So that should be all the evidence that you need to know that the books and umpires in Major League Baseball are not in cahoots with one another. If they were, Ohtani would have been punched out on that pitch. Now, he was punched out on a borderline pitch later in the game after fouling 2 pitches off. The pitch, I believe, was above the zone, and he got punched out on it. But all the same, Ohtani and the way the Blue Jays pitched him last night, they were on the edges or outside of the zone. There was nothing in the middle of the zone until the game was out of reach. Now, you could argue whether there was value on Ohtani, no, at minus 400, given one, how he was actually pitched, and two, the game situation and how that changed how he was pitched. Because in any circumstance where the Blue Jays get out to a bigger lead or the Dodgers get out to a bigger lead, you don't have to pitch around him, right? There's no worry about Ohtani hitting a solo shot other than like the aesthetics of momentum, other than, you know, him narrowing the game to a 3-run game or three-run game at that point. Like, there was no concern. So yeah, at that point you can start pitching to him, and that should be the concern if you're betting Ohtani under total bases or under home run, because the game could get out of reach at any point. But until that point, they were not throwing Ohtani pitches anywhere but the shadow zone of the strike zone. Now, they did discuss, and we joked about it yesterday, the mound meeting that Sir Anthony Dominguez had prior to serving up the game-tying homer to Ohtani. Their intention was to pitch around him. They weren't trying to throw a strike in the zone. He just made a mistake, and he left one out over the heart of the plate. Again, it was probably the worst executed pitch in the history of the sport, all things considered. But that said, you know, you can look at the heat maps from last night. Very evident, nothing until that curveball in the 8th inning was even in the like not on the line of one of the outside parts of the zone or out of the zone completely. So I think Ohtani yesterday, his total base prop, and his total base prop, typically you're going to get plus money on the under 1.5. Yesterday, I believe it closed minus 150, if not higher, minus 160 to the under 1.5. Today, the market is kind of in between, you know, his line yesterday and where his line normally is. I think he's around a pick 'em price today to go under 1.5 total bases. I believe his home run prop is back to where it was yesterday morning, about minus 210 to the no. So you could, I think, continue to bet Ohtani unders today based upon how he was pitched yesterday, and assuming that it will be a close game. Just the only caveat is, like I said, if one of these teams gets out to a 3-4 run lead and he comes up, he got a curveball in the middle of the zone yesterday. He didn't hit it, but he did get it. So that's the one worry. But yeah, the first plate appearance walk thing, you know, they're going to keep pitching around him. Like that very much is going to continue to be a thing here. They're not going to let Ohtani beat them. Now, I didn't look at his stolen base odds today. Obviously, he never ended up going last night, but we crashed that market yesterday because he was plus 475 when I gave that out. And by game time, he was plus 300. So I wasn't the only one who liked him to steal yesterday. He is, let's see, he's plus 320 to steal today. I don't like that as much. I liked it at plus 475. I said to bet it to plus 400. So I just think it's interesting. And that was my main takeaway from yesterday and going into today is his outs prop is kind of splitting the difference from where it should be versus where it was yesterday, or where it normally is versus where it was yesterday. His home run prop has seemingly regressed to where it was previously, where it was prior to game 3. And his stolen base prop has gotten dejuiced and does look more like what it looked like yesterday. So I think among the three, probably no home run continues to be the value bet among them. It's not a fun bet. It's not fun to lay juice on it. But if he's only going to get 1 or 2 pitches to hit the entire game, there's no way it's not a value bet.
This has got to be the only baseball podcast on earth recommending to bet under home runs on Shohei Ohtani, and I love it. It's so on brand. It makes 100% sense. It's like we see that on our NFL pods all the time with Sean Kerner giving out the unders on star players, and Grant
Neefer, our buddy, got yelled at on Twitter the other day, and it continues to get yelled at, I guess, for giving out Jonathan Taylor not to score a touchdown in a game where he ended up scoring 3 touchdowns. And it's like, people keep yelling at Grant, and when you have to be contrarian, you are going to go against popular opinion and popular sides, and as a result, people will think you're a fucking idiot when you get them wrong. But
if betting on,
especially when you're laying juice on something not to happen, right?
Yeah.
If you're laying minus 210 against Ohtani makes it even more uncomfortable than getting plus 300 on JT not to score a touchdown. So the uncomfort level and the discomfort level and the awareness that you will get yelled at and call an idiot if you get it wrong when Ohtani hits a nuke, all of that leads into there being value on the bet.
Yeah. If betting on star players overs was profitable 100% of the time, then all the sports books would go bankrupt, So
did you hear, Collin? People only want overs to be available now, though. They want to get rid of all under markets. And
that a lot of the books aren't even allowing you to parlay the unders, and that's a big thing because of how popular parlays are. But yeah, I mean, like the other week, you mentioned the Grant example, and Sean Kerner had a 13-3 weekend in NFL 2 weeks ago, and
I saw that.
His last pick of the week was Jahmyr Gibbs under rushing yards, and he lost by like 100 yards. It was like his worst bet of the night, and that's the only bet everyone cared about, right? Was that he lost Jahmyr Gibbs under, because it's Jahmyr Gibbs. Never mind that he went 13-3 that weekend. That's what happens, and if Ohtani hits a home run tonight, Old Takes Exposed is going to clip this podcast and you talking about why there's value on the under, and we'll live with it because that's just life. The Ohtani props you mentioned, though, the situations last night, the worry about betting the unders on Ohtani is, you kind of alluded to it, him coming up in spots where pitching to him is less scary, I guess. Last night,
game out of reach,
or just nobody on base. Last night, all 4 of his plate appearances came with nobody on base. That's a big deal.
They did, though. Going back to the extra inning game, there was twice they walked him in extra.
I know,
1 out, 2 out, nobody on base. So they also walked a runner into scoring position with him, in extras as well. So yeah, they've kind of like. It seemed like Schneider was prepared to walk him in every plate appearance based upon his comments after game 4. They did kind of pitch to him,
They did
a little bit.
Yeah. That's kind of my point is
in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely hittable pitches in there. It's just they were very intentional not to throw anything other than they're not going to intentionally walk him in the first inning. It would be a really cool fun fact if, all of the other Ohtani fun facts about, especially in game 6, if it was the first batter of the game on the road, that would be even crazier. Yeah.
Intentional walk to lead off the game, but they're not going to do that. He had one other inning last night where he led off the inning. They're not going to intentionally walk him leading off the inning unless it's the 9th inning in a tie game or something like that. That's the only situation where that's going to happen. And you can see that kind of going both ways in does that help or hurt?
Fangraphs did a long article, by the way, on the win probability of walking him in extra innings. Determined every single walk was a bad move. It actually John Schneider's decisions cost the Blue Jays. They calculated it about 12% in implied win probability in that game, walking him. Ohtani's walks, his intentional walks alone, were worth more to the win probability than any other player's contributions in the game. Just his intentional walks.
Yeah, his championship probability added is all-time high for this postseason right now, I'm sure. Interesting that the stolen base stuff's interesting because he walked to lead off the game yesterday, and they did again that camera view from the third base side where you can see the pitcher, you can see the batter. And 2 nights ago when he attempted that steal, you looked at him leading off and you're like, oh, he's going. Last night, it was like, this dude's tired. He has no interest in stealing this base. He was like 2 steps off the bag, hands on his knees, and it was like, all right, this is not a stolen base day for Ohtani.
And how do you think he feels today after throwing 100+ pitches?
Exactly.
Right? So,
but the thing that I wondered
today.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that I wondered about when you were talking about the price differences between today and yesterday is how that compares to days he pitches versus days he doesn't, overall. Because I guess the assumption is, he's less likely to hit well on days he pitches. Obviously, people have the NLCS performance in mind as a data point against that.
We have career splits. We know it's been proven he hits worse as a pitcher.
It just
takes up more energy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of explains why you get the significant minus on his unders last night versus it being closer to even money today.
Career 726 OPS as a pitcher, 960 as a DH.
Yeah. But there's only been 2 stolen base attempts in this entire series by either team. The Blue Jays have not attempted a stolen base yet. The Dodgers have the Ohtani attempt where he was caught, and then Freddie Freeman has one. I don't even remember that, but apparently Freddie Freeman has a stolen base in this series as well. And nobody else has attempted one.
Was that that was the out safe review at second base on Freddie?
Was that last night?
I think that might have been game 3.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember. My brain is mush about something.
Listen, too much happened in game 3 to have possibly remembered half the things that
Freddie
happened.
Freeman apparently stole a base at some point.
Yeah. He did in the third inning, which, at this point was like 7 games ago in terms of innings. So, but yeah, he did steal second in game 3.
And
that was then Will Smith singled and he got thrown out at home. That was the
right. Taco Bell doesn't still run that promotion about everyone getting a taco,
Nope.
Which is a travesty. If there's a point to this country going downhill, it's the second that promotion went away. But let's get into Game 5 here. We've done enough recapping. We're 2-2, and we have a rematch of Game 1 tonight. Blake Snell against Trey Yesevich. As you had mentioned a couple times this series, this will be Yesevich's first career playoff road start. All of his starts leading up to this year so far have been at home. He did have 2 road starts during the regular season in Tampa and in Kansas City, so slightly different environments, slightly less raucous environments than he's going to face tonight at Chavez Ravine. Dodgers minus 207 on the money line tonight. Blue Jays plus 168. Total sitting at an even 8 right now. I believe it opened 7.5. Sean, I think you might have logged that last night or this morning. A total on the 7.5. Just another point in the favor of reminding folks to download the app, to subscribe, to follow Sean, set up those pick alerts. You get those bet notifications. Can jump on the 7.5s before they become 8s. The Blue Jays won Game 1 behind Yesevich. As we had mentioned, it was Snell's worst start of the postseason, his worst start in quite some time. I think that there's an obvious bounce-back spot expectation here from Snell. There's some potential warts from Yesevich pitching at 22 years old in such a environment. He was starting in April in the backfields of Florida somewhere, and now he's pitching in the World Series on the road. What are you looking at, Sean, today in terms of total sides or props?
Yeah, as you said, the over. I like it to 8 at, we call it -115 this morning. I gave it out at 7.5, -112 last night. Said to bet it to 8 at -110. That is a 2% edge. 8 at -115 is a 1% edge. I've been going lower to 1%, making some exceptions during the playoffs just so more people can join in on the action. But it is still a plus EV play for me at that price. Now, we alluded to yesterday the temperature and the weather being warmer on Wednesday and Thursday relative to Tuesday. It's about 10 degrees warmer past couple of days than it was for Tuesday's game 3. And the bigger impact is going to come in the later innings. It may be close to 90 degrees at first pitch. It's going to be in the high 80s. But whereas on game 3 in the late innings, it dropped to 60 degrees, it's still going to be 78 degrees in the late innings tonight when these bullpens are involved. So almost a 15-degree difference, late innings of game 3 versus late innings of game 5. This is the warmest it will be in the late innings among all 3 games at Dodger Stadium as well. So avoiding the shadows with the 5 p.m. PT start as opposed to a 3 p.m. PT start that we had in the NLCS and NLDS. I shouted that out with Tyler Glasnow in game 3. Blake Snell, Blue Jays handled him pretty well in game 1. You look at called strike plus whiff rates in the playoffs, Snell at around 34% on the season. He was at 41% against the Reds, 37% against the Phillies, 41% against the Brewers. Anything above 40% is stupidly elite. 24% against the Blue Jays, which is below the major league average. They just did not give him any room to breathe. He pitched into the 6th inning. He did not record an out in the 6th inning. They knocked him out after loading the bases in the 6th. And then I believe you had the grand slam ultimately, which ended up blowing the game open. But Snell clearly struggled with this Blue Jays offense. I like his under 6.5 strikeouts today to -110. Even you could go even to -120 there. Action Labs has him at 6.1. He closed 6.5 -120, I believe, in game 1. We're getting a better number here. No huge difference in Snell's home versus road splits. He does have earlier in his career. I think that's more tied to the Trop being a pitcher-friendly environment. I think now that he's at Dodger Stadium, I don't really project a big boost or any boost for Snell pitching at home compared to on the road. So I think the Jays can continue to work Snell, put the ball in play, get him out of the game early. I'd said in game 3, if the Jays were going to win the series, they had to get Glasnow out of there early and get into the Dodgers bullpen. Well, going 18 innings kind of helped regardless to fire that Dodgers bullpen out. But more importantly, they got into the Dodgers bullpen in the 6th inning again last night. And if they're able to get into it again for the 3rd straight day in the 6th inning, they can win this game because the Dodgers bullpen is just so shaky and they don't trust Trinan. I'd imagine you might see Edgardo Enriquez get moved up a little bit after his performance the other day. They need arms and they need to figure out who could be their trustworthy arms late in the game. I'm also waiting for Sasaki to get pounced on too. I think Sasaki has been running a little bit lucky and guys just continuing to swing over the top. You look at his expected FIP, I think it's north of 4. So Sasaki due to get hit. The Dodgers bullpen should continue to get hit. In general, we haven't really seen a game where both bullpens have entirely blown up either. I think we are due for that. Now, Yasevich, I discussed in game 1 my concern about him starting in game 5 and not getting the start at home, primarily because the Dodgers can use their trajectory at home to prepare for him specifically. And because he has such a unique arm angle and throws, I believe, from the most over-the-top arm angle among starting pitchers, even higher than Jonah Tong, that's the kind of guy that you need very specific preparation for that you're not going to get on a road trip in Toronto where they don't have a trajectory. So I do think the preparation for Yasevich at home is going to be way different. Him starting in such a different environment could potentially impact him. His strikeout minus walk rates too, or sorry, not strikeout minus walk, his called strike plus whiff rates too, when you evaluate all of his starts at the major league level, was great in his major league debut. I believe he was in 40 percentile for called strike plus whiff rate. He was there in that ALDS start against the Yankees. Every other start, he's been between 26 and 30%, which is much closer to the major league average in that category. So I think the Dodgers can get to Yasevich here. His walk rate has been 12%. at the MLB level, including his regular season and postseason starts. That's far too high, especially against a very patient Dodgers offense. His outs prop is only listed at 12.5 tonight. The market expects him to turn over the Dodgers order twice before turning things over to the Blue Jays bullpen. With Bassett having thrown 2 innings yesterday, with Lauer having thrown 80 pitches 2 days ago, I don't know how the Blue Jays build an effective bridge to their late inning guys. Oh, by the way, you mentioned all the guys who have thrown 3 times in this series for the Blue Jays. Fluharty, Varland, their most trusted relievers. Jeff Hoffman threw 35 pitches 2 days ago. He was warming up in the 9th inning behind Varland last night because that game got a little bit tight. So, John Smoltz was discussing Kershaw throwing extended. Kershaw threw like almost an entire game in the bullpen in game. I mean, Kershaw must have thrown like 50 plus pitches in the bullpen in game 4 and then came in and threw like 5 in the
8.
actual game.
Yeah,
Kershaw was working innings out there in that Dodgers bullpen. Now, Hoffman wasn't working like particularly long, but anytime you get a guy up and they do start loosening up a little bit, it does have an impact. So even seeing Hoffman warming last night, I thought could have an impact for today potentially, but just in general, as he runs in this game, I make the total 8.5, like it up to 8 at -115. Not only the Yasevich blow-up potential, not only the bullpen blow-up potential on both sides, but also the weather here as well, I think should provide a boost with the wind blowing out to right field. Snell under 6.5 strikeouts to -110. The over 8 to -115. Snell you could take under to -120. Actually, I'm fine with. And then the side, I make the Dodgers -187, so no bet on the side. Make them -205 for the full game. The Yasevich K's line, I bet under 5.5 -120 in game 1. It's now 4.5 around +140. I want that 5.5, especially knowing he's probably able to air it out a little bit more if he knows he's only going through the order twice. I would just rather have the 5.5 as opposed to betting the 4.5. I think he landed on 5 exactly in that start as well. So we'll see if that moves up prior to game time. His overwalks is also a 2.5. It's probably fine where it is, but yeah, just in general, I like the over, and I like Snell under Ks. I didn't really see too many other angles other than Ohtani not to homer that I like for this game. And our consistent Muncy to homer bet has kind of dropped down to +400. I know he didn't homer the past couple games, and we're essentially even on the series for it, having bet it 4 times at around +418. I guess slightly profitable. We could bet it one more time and still be even. But yeah, I'm going to wait till closer to game time on Muncy homer just to see if we get a better number, because I have been checking every day, and it actually seems like it has moved up throughout the day. So it seems a little bit suppressed at the moment. I saw a few books at +390. We'll see if we can get a better number on Muncy homer. But Ohtani not to homer, I'll probably be firing into the app again.
Be sure to follow Sean for notifications if he does log a Muncy homer tonight. That's a reminder. Sign up for Action Pro for real-time pick alerts from experts like Sean Zerillo, Derek Carty, our entire Action Network team. Plus, you can access our pro projections powered by Sean Kerner and our predictive analytics team. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and get $20 off the annual price with the promo code PAYOFF20. So don't miss out on the best bets at the best prices. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro. Use promo code PAYOFF20 to get $20 off a year of Action Pro.
I neglected to mention the lineup situations for tonight. So the Blue Jays said yesterday that George Springer is, quote, hour by hour, which I don't know what that really means. They did kind of indicate that they considered using him last night. So I think there's a chance George Springer could be back tonight. I'm not projecting him in. I have Bichette leading off at the top of the lineup tonight against the left-handed starter. Schneider in there. Basically the guys they played last night, but platooning out the lefties for the righties. Lucas, can't recall the other lefty that they platoon, but Varsho should be in there. Barger should probably be out, and Lucas should probably be out. We'll see if they end up going with that lineup or if Springer's back in there. I think the Dodgers make a change tonight. I think Paz is out tonight.
He's got to be, right? He's got to be.
He's got to be. He went 0 for 2 last night. They pulled him down 6-2. Gave Alex Call a couple of ABs. Dave said their options are, and Paz is 4 for 50 in the postseason. It's just been a disaster. Their options are to put Collin, to put Edman in center and use Miguel Rojas at second base, or I can't remember the third option he said, but I think it's one of those two. I think it's
was it
either
Kim?
Paul,
Was it Ha-Seong Kim potentially?
Hyun Kim, and I think in Dave's comments he didn't mention Kim. So yes, that would seem like an option, especially wanting a left-handed bat potentially against the right-handed starters. But no, based on Doc's comments, it seems like it's either call for Pajes straight up, or it's Edman to center and then Rojas at second base.
What does that do to your defensive projections? That second option.
Call and Pajes are surprisingly similar to me. Edman, we know, is like a little bit hobbled right now.
Yeah.
So playing Edman in center field, I think Edman's one of the best defensive second basemen in the sport. You have to downgrade Edman's contributions, but Miguel Rojas is a really good second baseman. So it sort of downgrades the Dodgers outfield, but keeps their infield the same. So I guess it would be a very slight downgrade. Probably wouldn't impact me much. If Springer plays, you have to downgrade the Blue Jays defensively.
Yeah, of course.
Because you can't DH both Springer and Bichette at the same time. So certainly the Blue Jays have a better lineup, or a better defensive lineup, with Springer on the bench. But obviously you upgrade them offensively. But, to that point, I already said I like the over. If Springer's in there, I'm going to like the over even more, because then you're downgrading defense and you're upgrading offense.
Yeah. Just going back before I get into my bets to the bullpen conversation, because that's the thing that I try to figure out the most when looking at, projected pitches seen on a given night. And it's a lot trickier tonight than it was last night, because everyone's kind of available tonight, whereas last night it was like 3 guys were available on each side. I'd say everyone's kind of available in the sense that, it's game 5 of the World Series. If you can give a team a couple innings, and they need you, they're going to turn to you. I did laugh a little bit when you were talking about the Dodgers bullpen woes, and one of the comments you made was they don't trust Blake Trinan. And I would say that their bullpen woes are contributed to the fact that they do trust Blake Trinan too much.
I don't think you could do it again, though, at this point. It's over.
Dave Roberts loves that man, loves using that man a little too much. It's going to be interesting to see what they use. I imagine we'll see some Emmett Sheehan tonight. He seems to be their kind of first man up, unless they need a lefty. He threw 37 pitches 2 days ago, but again, it's the World Series. If they need a lefty tonight, it'll be interesting because, Band has thrown 2 days in a row, 18 pitches total, but you mentioned getting up, going down. It'd be interesting to see how often Band has done that. Again, he's in the Vesia role right now, and he's not as good of a pitcher as Vesia is. Vesia, up until Sasaki got installed as closer at the end of the year, Vesia was their most trustworthy reliever all year long. So it's tough to overstate how big of a deal that is, especially when big spots come up against lefties. You mentioned Henriquez. Interesting to see if we go to him at some point tonight. I can't imagine that Will Klein is available after throwing 72 pitches 2 days ago. So really what it comes down to for me from a Dodgers bullpen usage perspective is if they need a lefty in a key spot, is it Banda for a third day in a row, or is it Justin Robleski, who threw 28 pitches 2 days ago, slightly lower on the food chain? They did go to him first, I think in game 1 or something like that. But I from a lefty perspective, it's either Banda on no rest or it's Robleski, who you trust a little less. And on the Toronto side, I think that it's everyone potentially, which is both a good and bad thing. We'll see Hoffman and Dominguez in the spots where they need them. I never want to say Louis Varland's unavailable, even though he's thrown exactly 20 pitches 2 days in a row. Brendan Little didn't throw yesterday. I think that everyone could potentially be used in Toronto's bullpen today, with the exception of Eric Lauer and Chris Bassett. Lauer, again, 68 pitches 2 days ago. Bassett now 2 days in a row. As someone who never pitched him. It is worth
noting when we say that the Jays are only carrying 8 relievers, whereas the Dodgers have 9. So when you're shortening up your bullpen by 2 relievers, that is a pretty thin group, and you do want your starter to actually get through the 5th inning if possible. So
I was really surprised by that when the rosters came out. They carried France, Schneider, Straw IKF all on their bench
They
instead
used
of
all of them the other day, so at
yeah
least they got the most out of it, right?
yeah. It was Yariel Rodriguez, I believe, was the big
Yes. Mm-hmm.
guy they decided not to carry.
Another guy who can eat innings too.
Exactly. So yeah, the bullpen plan is kind of interesting from a player prop perspective. Addison Barger kind of saved our ass yesterday. He was the one bet we hit on the total basis, and it was I was kind of feeling myself a little bit, despite it being an overall negative day from a betting perspective, because I said if he gets another opportunity late in the game, if he needs another hit and he gets a spot against Blake Trinan, that's when he's going to come through. And he hit his total basis prop against Trinan there in the late innings. But for today, again, this is a rematch of game one, so we'll probably be looking at some similar props here. On Toronto's side, that means Alejandro Kirk. That means Dalton Varsho. I really wanted to go with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. here from a Toronto side. Just can't really justify some of these prices we're seeing on him. By the way, the current hits leader in the series now, looking at the hit series leader prop, he's like plus 160 now. He's got a one hit lead. Let me double check this. He's got a one hit lead over Shohei Ohtani and then his teammates Barger and Clement for hits leader. Despite it feeling like a relatively quiet series for Vlad, just relative to what he's done previously in the playoffs. Obviously, the big homer last night could have broken him out in a big way, but he's still being priced like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That makes it harder to justify pulling the trigger on some of those props. So we go with Kirk. Came through with us, obviously, in game one. Then my second Blue Jays hitter, I'm going also back to Dalton Varsho, who also came through for us in game one. Little bit more nervous on Varsho props, obviously lefty against Snell early in the game, but he came through in game one. He's got good numbers against Snell's offerings and the other projected LA relievers tonight. On LA's side, we are looking at Freddie Freeman and Will Smith. Smith, we've been betting consistently throughout these playoffs, and Freeman obviously came through with the home run for us in game 3. And against Yacevich's offerings, he shows a lot of value. And I was kind of surprised to see, when I'm looking at these projections and looking at these numbers, obviously the hitters who are going to stand out the most are the best hitters. Ohtani always comes in first, and it's like, okay, well, it's hard to justify betting Ohtani props. Mookie Betts also grades out really well, despite his offensive struggles. Max Muncy grades out well. Freddie Freeman grades out well. And I'm like, well, I'm probably not going to bet these guys because their numbers aren't going to be able to justify these bets. So I was really surprised to see Freddie Freeman's props today. Getting plus 127 on him to get 2+ bases seems like really good value for a hitter of Freeman's quality. Obviously, the homer, the walk-off 2 days ago. He had another 2 hits last night, so I feel like he's kind of rounding into form, feeling himself a little bit. Will Smith's been hitting the ball well. He's been striking out a lot, but even when he doesn't get hits, I feel like he's making solid contact. We're getting plus 148 on him, 2+ bases. Freeman plus 460 to hit a home run. Smith plus 509. And on the Toronto side, Kirk plus 181 and plus 600 for the bases and home run, and Varsho plus 230 and plus 790 respectively. Though that's the long shot again. Is Varsho tonight. So those are the 4 player props I'm on tonight.
App shows value on overhit for both Kirk and
Smith.
Yes. So I think Kirk and Smith are the 2 app recommended bets among those.
Yeah, that kind of leads us to our SGP. I was thinking about, we've been shooting for the moon a lot in these with adding homer props, etc. Let's tame it down a little bit today. I'm feeling really good. I think this is going to be our SGP hit of the series. If there's a day for us to hit one, it's a day that we expect offense with your over bet. So we could easily, on a normal day, what we've been doing is just adding, okay, your best bets, my best bets. All right, there's our SGP. We'll temper it down a little bit. We'll still add your props over 7.5, Snell under 6.5 strikeouts. And my 2 favorite hitter props that mesh with our pro projections Alejandro Kirk, Will Smith. But instead of betting them 2+ bases, we're just going to bet on each of them to get a hit. So full game over, Snell strikeouts under, Kirk to get a hit, Will Smith to get a hit, 525 at DraftKings, plus 525.
I like it.
So like that quite a bit as our SGP for Game 5 of the World Series. But that'll do it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets from today's episode, look for the quick slip links in the episode description or visit actionnetwork.com/betnow. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app. Also, please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. And check out our new AI quick slip bot on X. Tag @Playbook. Tell it to grab whatever bets you're looking for. It'll create a quick slip link for you in a matter of seconds. We'll be back on Friday. It'll be, I thought we'd be coming into today, if the Dodgers won last night, saying this might be our last episode of the season. It's not. We know we will have one more episode. Friday, Game 6, someone will be playing to clinch a World Series title. We will have an episode of Best Bets there. We'll talk a little bit about projections for Game 7, which would take place on Saturday if it happens. But we will be back one more time for you with Best Bets for the World Series between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Los Angeles Dodgers. For Sean Zerillo, I'm Collin Whitchurch. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. Enjoy Game 5 of the World Series, and good luck with all your bets.